Hey guys, this is Pops Martin again, and in the third part of Musicians' Electrical Hazards, I want to talk about playing on stage at a venue or open air, or if you go on tour, what kind of things you should check and what you should carry, hopefully, and what you can do to maximize your safety on stage. So let's get right into it. All right, you're playing in a band, and it's fun to play in a band. But there are some problems. Once you get some gigs, you really have to memorize lots of stuff like checking the condition of your instrument, taking some spare strings or drumsticks, and which snare do you want to take. And it's a lot of stuff to consider and to memorize that you don't forget to take it to a gig. So, everything that you don't have to keep in mind will help you to stay safer. Yeah, really. It's that way. So we have this little nice Bolivian band there, and they are touring. There's the tour bus, and it's kind of funny because if we just turn around this beautiful tour bus because we want to take out all the equipment for the gig, you will see there's someone sitting there, and that's a roadie or stagehand. Yeah. And that's something very important because if you're busy to set up your gear and maybe practice and discuss the set list with your band members, and there's lots of stuff to do. And if you have someone, stagehand, roadie, that can take over some of the work that is necessary, like setting up electricity, for example, because, yeah, we're still talking about musicians' electrical hazards. And to have an experienced stagehand or roadie that helps you set up your stuff properly, that will help a lot because you will not remember everything. And when you set up your stuff on stage, you're kind of busy in your mind with lots of other stuff. How will the venue sound? And am I properly prepared for this gig? Will I memorize the lyrics for this song? And so on, and so on, and so on. So if you don't have to worry about electrical connections and all this kind of stuff, then it's already a big help. So my first tip is get someone to help you. That's number one, and it's more important than you might think. Okay, next one. Okay, so since we are talking about electrical hazards, the most important thing to consider is power supply, obviously. And that might be a little bit difficult depending on where you are, probably most likely in Nepal. And yeah, we all know that these power strips are kind of really awful in Nepal because it's difficult to ever get a really proper, tight connection with these cheap Chinese made multi plugs or power strips, whatever you want to call it. And on top of that, there is no protection against water, for example. So, what I want to show you is a German kind of power strip. That's one. This particular one is IP44 protected. That means it's protected against kind of stuff going inside your connections, and it's also splash water resistant. Obviously, it's not waterproof, but it's splash water resistant because each and every of these connectors are protected against direct access for water, and even the main switch here is protected with a little bit of rubber here. So that's already much, much, much safer than any power strip you can get in Nepal. So I highly recommend that you talk with a dealer that is kind of specialized in these kind of electrical appliances. And they should import this kind of stuff. Yeah. not this particular model, there's many, but keep in mind that it should be IP44 or IP54 rated, so you have some safety against entry of water. May it be rain, may it be a glass of beer, whatever. Water is a real electrical hazard, and you should really avoid to have water coming in. Now, I already talked about RCDs, and this is one that you can carry. It's a really simple one, and it even has a test button, so you can press it and test if it actually switches off. So that's very important as well. And it's also IP54 protected, in this particular case, IP54. So you should take this as well. So if there is something wrong with your equipment and you get an electric shock, briefly, it will immediately switch off. I talked about that in, I think, the first video of the electrical hazards. And you will immediately notice when I press this inside, it's a really tight connection, yeah? I can carry it like this, no problem. It will not drop, it will not fall out. And here I can connect my whatever, guitar amplifier or pedal board or whatever. And yes, it costs a little bit of money. Of course, it's a little bit of effort to get this stuff. But keep in mind, your life costs something as well. It may cost your life if you don't get stuff that is safe for you. I don't know how many times I said this now, but it's really important. And yeah, there's no way to be that safe with the equipment you might use at the moment. So make it happen somehow. Get this kind of stuff. And even if this has, this particular device here, this power strip, has 4.5 meters of cable. And on this side here, it has this kind of German, it's called Schuko, yeah, which sits really tightly and has also a little bit of splash water protection here. There's a little bit of rubber here on the side. And even, yeah, if you want to connect it in Nepal, you can just cut this and put a three-prong plug here from Nepal. And from this point, you can continue with this Schuko system, yeah, which is much, much, much safer than what you currently might have, yeah. Now, if you make a connection somewhere, if you have to extend the cable range, for example, with an extension cord, I want to show you one more thing that is really important. Sorry for the cable mess. Usually, you would connect these two pieces together like that. And in this particular case, it's perfectly fine for now, because it's pretty tight fit, so it won't come off easily. But if you consider that you have these cables running on the floor and someone might trip over a cable, it's still possible to just, bam, disconnect it. And while this, in the first moment when you think about it, it just disconnects your gear, yeah, that might be true. Let's say this one here goes to your guitar amp, then the guitar amp obviously is off now. But why is this still an issue? It's still an issue because water can enter here now, yeah? So you should really prevent this from happening, that you trip over a cable and disconnect it suddenly. So what I always recommend, and what we do at my work, always, if we go somewhere, we make this kind of thing and then connect it. And now it's impossible to disconnect it when you trip over the cable. So it's much safer already. And now, what I also recommend is, it's not waterproof, yeah? But if you're playing in heavy rain, or if there's some possibility of water on stage or liquids on stage, I recommend to wrap this in plastic, like a plastic bag with no holes inside, yeah? So you just wrap it and you use this kind of stage tape to really tighten it properly, to make it almost waterproof. But for obvious reasons, you have to do that when it's dry, when it's still dry. So if you have this wet already and you put a plastic bag around it, The moist will stay inside, of course. It will not dry, and this can already be another electrical hazard. So keep stuff dry, and third of all, keep stuff dry. Yeah. So yeah, let's continue with the next one. I have been talking many times now about RCDs and the importance for your personal safety right from the first video of this series, and even in the third one. I cannot spare you from listening to RCD stuff. Here's the one that you can easily carry around. Yeah, you might find something similar somewhere, or ask for it, order it, get it somehow. And the important thing is that you test this device. Each and every RCD device needs to have a test button where you press, and then it should immediately switch off. Yeah. Now, the important thing to understand is that you might play in a venue where they already have an RCD device in their main switchboard somewhere in the venue, or if they run a generator, the generator might already be equipped with an RCD. It's no problem to have multiple RCDs in your electrical power supply chain. Yeah. It's not a big problem. But one thing you should keep in mind is that when you test this stuff in your venue, you cannot be sure which device will switch off. Yeah, it might be this one is the most sensitive one. So when you press the test button, this one switches off, but none other switches off. But it's well possible that when you press this test button, the main RCD at the main switchboard will switch off because it's more sensitive than this one. Yeah, so it's well possible that you immediately switch off the electricity in the entire venue, for example. Yeah, if they have a very sensitive RCD device somewhere in the main power supply switchboard. Yeah. So talk with the people at the venue. Tell them, hey guys, I want to test my RCD now. Be prepared. Tell someone to go to the main switchboard just in case. Yeah, it's no problem to do it, but talk with the people before you just switch off everything. You know, it might be power loss even on the mixing desk, front of house mixing desk, and they're currently busy to set up everything, and they haven't stored the scenes or the light controlling board. Yeah, if they do some kind of video effects or light effects or something like that, they might be working and they have not stored anything. So communicate with people before you test this stuff, but make sure that you do test this stuff. Otherwise, it makes no sense. You need to make sure that it actually works and that it protects you, right? So very important thing for playing on stage, on tour, somewhere. Okay, next topic. Okay, one more topic I want to talk about is the coexistence of electricity, electrical power supply on stage, and audio, of course, audio signals like this unbalanced guitar cable, or you might even use it for a keyboard or something, these unbalanced audio cables. So when they coexist on stage and you run them in parallel, like side by side, this can also be a problem, because just imagine that this electrical power supply cable can basically provide 3,500 watts of electrical energy. So there's lots of stuff going on in this cable, potentially, yeah? And if you run this audio cable, this unbalanced, like guitar cable, yeah, side by side, the energy of the electricity cable, the electrical cable, can induce some potential into the audio cable. Most of the time you notice this as a, for example, 50 cycle hum or something like that, or in other countries 60 cycle hum. But it can also induce some kind of electrical potential into this. So if you touch this, you will get, for example, a quick electric shock. Maybe not as dangerous or hazardous as if you touch directly a power supply or something, yeah? But still there can be some voltage waiting for you. So my recommendation, general recommendation is to never run them in parallel. You want to run them in some way, and it's difficult to show. And if you have to cross, then you cross like like this, yeah? So one is going this way and the other one is going this way, yeah? You don't want to run them in parallel. You want to cross it. And of course, the ideal situation is that you try to run all your electricity, your electrical power, for example, beneath the stage, and all your audio cables on the stage. And if you have to go from beneath the stage with your electricity to, for example, your pedal board or your monitor speakers, then just go from beneath the stage up and into whatever you want to power. So you have kind of this direction, yeah, as opposed to audio cables running this direction. So that already reduces the amount of electricity or electrical interference between audio cables and electrical power supply cables. Yeah. Now, sorry, I had to get this guitar cable from the floor again. So let's just suppose that for now this one is a keyboard cable. Yeah, I have connected one side. Here we are. One side I have connected to the keyboard, and with the other one I want to go to the stage box or whatever, to the mixing desk. We should try to avoid long cable runs, long audio cable runs. And a good way to do that is to use DI boxes. You might have seen that before if you ever played an outdoor stage or something, like professional people managing these bigger events. They always have a bunch of these DI boxes. And you just go with your cable inside this DI box. And from the other side, you just use XLR cable, which is a balanced cable. So if you keep this side here, short as possible, for example, in your keyboard, you just put this DI box beneath your keyboard. You only need like a 1 meter cable or something like that. And the rest of the connection by XLR is already balanced, so you don't get any kind of interference. Yeah. Still, don't run power cables and audio cables in parallel, ever. Now, one thing you need to know about DI boxes is most of them do have a ground lift switch. Ground lift basically means that you can switch it, so suddenly it's ungrounded, yeah? And this is helpful to prevent from ground loops, yeah? So if you have multiple devices connected to your mixing desk, for example, and all of them are properly grounded, then you unavoidably create ground loops on stage. And it's nice that you can lift the ground in some specific parts of your setup, but never, ever, never, ever lift the ground on every device in one loop. Yeah? Because then you basically made sure that the grounding, which contributes to your safety, is kind of, defeated. Nothing is grounded anymore. You just want to prevent from ground loops to exist. So you can kind of break the loop if you ground lift at some specific places, but never, ever you want to do ground lift everywhere. That's very important to understand. And just as an example, because it's right here, this Kemper Profiler, pretty popular nowadays for electric guitarists. In the back, it has, I think it's 4 ground lift switches, because the Kemper Profiler has lots of inputs and outputs. And to kind of prevent from ground loops, you have 4 separate ground lift switches. You should use maximum 3 at a time. You should never, ever lift the ground on all 4 switches. So let's say you use 2 outputs in your Kemper, 2 separate outputs, maybe one for the monitor and one main out to the mixing desk. and you experience some kind of 50 cycle hum or 60 cycle hum for that matter, you can lift the ground on one of these outputs, but never ever lift the ground on both outputs, because that basically makes the device ungrounded against the front of house disk. Yeah. So please keep that in mind. Ground lift is nice to have, but you need to know or need to understand what it does and how to do it. And while we're at it, need to know what to do. This one here, this is basically a tester. Yeah. So if you have if you have some power strip, and then you can use it with your finger here, and you can put it there, and you can check if there is power available or not. Yeah, there's a light inside. You have seen that for sure. Be very careful about that. You cannot trust that, because it will only show you if there is basically the live wire, the phase, yeah, but the neutral or the protective ground, if you touch it, it will likely not light up. Yeah, it will not do. But there can still be some voltage or some current waiting for you. So be very careful about these. They are like an easy, quick indication where's the phase, where's the live, yeah, but nothing else. If there's some electrical fault somewhere, if there's a current on the protective earth, for example, it will not tell you. Yeah, that's very careful about this stuff. So best option is to get a stagehand, roadie, who really knows what he does and who you can trust and who is serious about his work. So yeah, I think that's it. And to wrap it up, I want to repeat two things. Get RCDs. Get them. Get them. No discussion about that. Get these devices. Test them. Make sure you prevent from water or any liquids on stage or on your gear or inside your gear. Yeah. Make sure that won't ever happen. Invest a little bit money into your safety. You might have a collection of beautiful and relatively expensive guitars and guitar amps and lots of gear, your pedal board. Everything costs you money. Invest some money in your personal safety as well. Don't skip that. Yeah, I don't want anyone to experience the electric shock that my best friend in Nepal recently experienced. So make sure you're safe and enjoy life as much as you can, and take care, guys. Cheers. And if you still feel unsure about the environment you're supposed to play in, if you don't know the venue, if all I explained you was too complicated to you, and you still want to make sure that nothing happens to you, the best option is to go wireless. Yes, especially for guitarists, for bassists, and for singers. There's wireless microphone systems out there, and you should seriously consider that. There's expensive gear out there regarding wireless, but there's also cheap solutions, so it doesn't cost you as much as a beautiful new guitar, and you should seriously consider that. That's probably the safest solution for you as a guitarist, as a bassist, or as a vocalist on stage, to just use wireless, so you don't have to touch anything that is directly connected to electricity, to main power. All right, so I want to see you rush to the stores and buy wireless. All right, cheers.